Hey guys, I've been doing a lot of comparison videos recently and I thought it would be a good idea to try something different for a video. Don't worry, this isn't the end of comparison videos. I've actually got one coming out on Friday hopefully, and I just wanted to try something different and see how it goes. So I had a look around the internet for ideas and rediscovered a channel I used to watch. It's called Flat Earth Talk and does videos about, you guessed it, the Flat Earth Hypothesis. So I had a look around their channel and found this video. Flat Earth Facts, Top 5 Reasons I No Longer Believe in the Globe. After wasting a quarter of an hour of my life on the video, I saw it had so many holes and problems in it that I just had to make a video on it. And remember, this guy has 250,000 subscribers on his channel, and just this video alone has 400,000 views. So statistically speaking, this video has probably convinced a large number of people that the Earth is flat. So let's debunk it.
Hi, my name's Andrew, and I love God.
So for the first part of the video, he goes on about how much he loves God and how people think he's crazy he believes in the flat earth model. I'm going to skip this part and go to the arguments that he makes.
Here's the top 5 reasons that I no longer believe in the global Earth in 2016. Number 1. Space is fake. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Did you know that there is no real true photo of the Earth from space? We're taught that these images are, but even NASA themselves openly admit that all these images are done in Photoshop. They are composite computer-generated images. And if you look close, you can see all the discrepancies in each of them, how some of the continents do not match up.
So when the quote says that the Earth's photoshopped, what it actually means is that different pictures of parts of the Earth are taken and put on top of each other to make a full picture. If you didn't know, the Earth is very, very big, and to get a shot with the whole thing in, you have to be pretty far away from it, which isn't easy. However, it has been done, and there are actually images out there of the entire Earth. I don't actually think that all of the images he showed are composites anyway. This image was taken by the crew of the Apollo 17 spacecraft, and it's not a composite. They got the whole planet in one photo. And for the part where he shows North America being in a different size in 2 different images, I wouldn't say that's a fair comparison to make, because in the 2 images you're looking at completely different parts of the Earth. Look at the 2007 image. You can see all of South America in it, and in the 2012 version, it's looking from a completely different angle. You can barely even see parts of South America. The 2007 version is clearly showing less of the North American continent than the second image. And with 1 second's thought, I'm sure he could have figured that out for himself. Okay, so after this bit, he talks about what looks like NASA writing in the clouds of their images. I'm going to skip out this part because, judging by how sensitive YouTube is these days, I don't want to get demonetized.
Every aspect of space footage is fake. We've seen water bubbles in footage, and
in this clip, he claimed that water bubbles can be seen in footage in space. Aside from the fact that there was no evidence for this in the video, I don't see how a water bubble in space would prove space is fake. And if you're talking about those balls of water that form in footage from the ISS and referring to those as bubbles, the lack of gravity is actually what allows them to become spheres. I'll leave a link in the description to an article that explains this process a lot better than I could.
Other discrepancies such as flimsy hatch lids, which clearly show this is not real whatsoever.
I'm not sure about you, but I don't think a flimsy door on a spacecraft proves that space is faked.
Footage from the ISS is easily faked using a green screen and what is known as a zero-G plane, as I'm sure of other methods as well. The plane flies high up in the air and then does a basic nosedive, producing an environment where everything is just in free fall. We can see here that this woman seems a little bit on edge and is clearly feeling unsafe, as I imagine most would in a plane that's in a free fall.
I don't know if you realise this, but the woman and her surroundings are actually in a free fall. When you're in a space station, or any other satellite for that matter, you're constantly falling towards Earth. The gravity at the altitude of the ISS is almost the same as the gravity on the surface. So why didn't astronauts just plunge to the ground? What happens is when rockets get to space, they always thrust sideways. This means that while it is in fact falling towards the centre of the Earth, the surface of the Earth curves away beneath it, so it misses all the time.
And it's just a money-making scheme. NASA alone pulled in a whopping...
Wait. Can you see a harness and ropes in this clip? I honestly can't. Either my eyes aren't working, or there's actually nothing here. Now I know I'm going to get some comments pointing out that his shirt looks like it was being pulled up by a string. However, that's something that's important to remember, is that this is all happening in a zero-gravity environment. That part of his shirt has no reason to fall down. I see a lot of these harness videos about space, but even if they were real, why would a harness be needed to fake space?
Paying $18.5 billion in 2016. Reason to lie? Yeah, very much.
This one always makes me laugh because a quick Google search can show you how NASA uses the money they're given. Also, don't you think it's funny how nobody has ever indicated that NASA officials are taking loads of money for themselves? According to NASA, they have a total of 18,000 employees, and there are countless other companies associated with them. Don't you also think it's funny how none of the people associated with NASA have slipped and said that it's all fake? I do. Also, even if NASA or another space organisation was caught faking footage, wouldn't that only prove that space travel is fake and not space itself?
Number 2. There is no curve. Last time I checked, a ball shape has to have a curve somewhere. But in fact, once you truly look, you will find none. Anywhere. There's none. The proof of this is in objects that can be seen from certain distances over water.
At first, this is a convincing argument, but if you look closely, it's pretty easy to debunk in this case. That tall building on the left is called Willis Tower. It's about half a kilometre to the very top. Let's get another image of the tower and compare it to the one in the video. Putting the second image over the original and... it looks like the base of the building has dipped below the horizon after all. For the next part of the video he goes on about a couple of other examples of tall things at great distances, but forgets the elevation of the camera, so it's not really worth talking about them.
The only reason to doubt this fact is from false curvature that you've been shown in many aspects, and we must not forget the mass deception shown to us from evil corporations such as NASA.
No, I'm not entirely sure if that image is using a fisheye lens, but if it was, don't you think it's weird that parts of the station seen in the photograph aren't distorted as well? And even if you did prove that all the images of Earth are fake, that doesn't prove that the Earth isn't round, only that the images of the Earth are fake. We would have still had loads of other ways of proving the Earth is a globe. Heck, the ancient Greeks were able to prove the Earth was round, and look at the level of technology they had back then. So really, you flat earthers should have gone extinct thousands of years ago.
And even our own public schooling systems, or as I like to call them, the indoctrination centers. The textbooks in our schools are written in favor of the elite. Number 3. No movement. Movement of the Earth, whether it is the 1,000-mile-per-hour spin, wobble on its axis, or the blindingly fast speeds it's going around the sun or moving through the Milky Way, they are never observed, felt, or even recorded ever in history. It's never been measured or have been found to move, and just speculated in theories. It's perfectly still, and we can prove this using science and repeatable experiments.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that the Earth's rotation, its orbit around the Sun, and even the Sun's orbit around the galaxy can be measured and observed. Do you really think scientists just pluck these numbers out of the air? The motion of the stars are perfectly explained by a rotating Earth, and why the Sun appears at different altitudes at different times of year. The strange motion of the planets in the sky over time is perfectly explained by the heliocentric model. If the planets went in a circle around the sky, it would be evidence supporting the geocentric model, but they don't. In fact, they actually wobble in their paths across the sky over months and years. This can only be explained by the heliocentric model, and I'll leave some links in the description that go into more depth on the subject. Even the motion of the Sun around the galaxy can be measured. You'll find that certain pictures of stars that are years apart show how the stars move relative to the other stars in the image. Using loads of this data, it's possible to measure the Sun's speed in orbit around the galaxy. So why hasn't any of this been felt? The answer is that humans don't actually feel speed, rather changes in speed. For example, when you're sitting in a car and it suddenly accelerates, you feel pushed back into your seat. This is because the car's accelerating and you are not. However, after a while things start to feel more comfortable and you're no longer pushed back into your seat. This happens because you're now moving at the same speed as the car, so you're not actually moving relative to the car. This is exactly the same for the Earth. The Earth spins and orbits the Sun because of the momentum from the disk of debris that formed it. The debris disk was spinning, so therefore the Earth spins as well. What's important to remember is that the material we're made from has been on the Earth since the time when it formed, so we are actually moving with it.
The gyroscope is an instrument that will retain its rigidity in space and should appear to turn if the surface it is on is rotating, such as the Earth should. So in fact, if the Earth were spinning at all, we would notice this movement in the gyroscope. However, we can see that we observe no motion. We are perfectly still and going nowhere.
Okay, so this is where it gets really embarrassing. The assumption you're making in the video is that gravity pulls you down objectively, no matter where you are. Truth is, it actually pulls you to the centre of mass, in this case the Earth. So no matter what time of day it is, the gyroscope will always align with the direction it's pulled, which is always to the centre of the Earth. This argument, in my opinion, is just as ridiculous and laughable as the argument that you can only live on the top of the Earth because you'd fall off anywhere else.
The Michelson-Morley experiment also found this as well. When the experiment found out that the Earth was not spinning, along comes Einstein to the rescue to make up his theory of relativity, which is just a theory and has never been fully proven.
What you're forgetting here is that a scientific theory is different from just a normal theory. A scientific theory is essentially a statement that has got a lot of evidence to support it, and relativity has got evidence to support it. In fact, I don't think you would actually be able to put your video up on the internet without relativity having been discovered and measured, so be grateful for it. Once again, I'll leave some links below and make another video on this in the future, because this video is getting quite long. So now that we've established relativity is 100% real, the Michelson-Morley experiment can be explained with the Earth spinning. Relativity states that the speed of light is constant, so no matter how fast you're travelling, light will always be moving at 300,000 km per second relative to you. So if the Earth is spinning, it makes absolutely no difference to the results of the experiment.
Airy's failure was an experiment that proved that the heavenly bodies are in motion, while we are not, using telescopes with water. Telescopes have to be very slightly tilted to get the starlight going down the axis of the tube because the Earth's speed around the Sun.
I myself am an amateur astronomer and work with telescopes all the time. I've pointed a telescope directly up and I can still see stars. Our orbit around the Sun is completely irrelevant when observing stars like that.
Airy filled the telescope with water that greatly slowed down the speed of the light inside the telescope.
Are you joking? The speed of light in a vacuum is 300,000 kilometers a second, and the speed of light in water is still more than 2/3 that. So whether or not it's in water, light still moves incredibly fast. To slow down the speed of light to the extent you would need to carry out this experiment, you would need to fill your telescope with the Bose-Einstein condensate, which is impossible. So since this argument has already been disproven, let's move on to the next one.
Another strange fact I'd never considered is the fact that airplanes would have to do all sorts of maneuvers just to land on a surface that's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour in one direction. It would simply be impossible for them to land, and wouldn't they fly faster to their location if flying against the spin of the ball?
What you're forgetting here is that the plane in the scenario is moving with the Earth's rotation. We formed with the Earth, don't forget, so we're spinning with it. So relative to us, the Earth isn't actually spinning, and when the planes take off, they are actually moving with the Earth, but relative to the ground are moving to their destination.
Number 4. Water. The nature of water is always flat when left unmanipulated. It always finds its level. It never curves or bends. The only time it does so is with what's called surface tension, and surely surface tension doesn't have waves like our oceans do. It's called water level for a reason, and not water curval. No matter what container it is in, water will always remain flat.
What you're forgetting is that there's a huge difference between the containers shown in the video and the Earth. Do those containers have gravity strong enough to have any influence on the water at all? No, but the Earth does. When somebody says water is always flat, in the case of the Earth, what they actually mean is that the level of water is always perpendicular to the direction to the centre of the Earth. Also, how can you expect to see curvature like that when you're looking at such a small section of the Earth? It's really stupid to compare a glass of water to the Earth, man. Please don't.
Number 5. Horizon always rises to eye level. No matter what height an observer on the Earth will rise to, the horizon will keep on rising to eye level, which is impossible on any size ball whatsoever. Any height you rise on a ball, the horizon would stay fixed in place, but this is not what we observe. The horizon keeps on rising at any height, clearly indicating a flat plane we are on instead of a ball.
So do you mean that the higher you go, the higher the horizon rises? So is the horizon moving up with you? I'm pretty sure the horizon would stay in place regardless of whether the Earth is round or flat.
With the enormous amount of others coming awake to the globe deception, they are launching many more high-altitude balloons to see what we can find out on our own. We are finding that the sun is much closer, indicated with a hot spot underneath where it is, which is a clear indicator that is not 93 million miles away, as we're told.
Before debunking this argument, I just want to quickly point out that you can clearly see the curvature of the Earth in this video. Are you going to tell me this is a computer render also? So, I don't really get the point you're trying to make here, but I simulated this in 3D software with accurate scales, and it worked, so I don't know what you're talking about. That hotspot was still created when I had a giant sphere of a sun really far away from the scene. I think what you're actually forgetting is that there is a difference between something that's small and something that's far away.
In fact, the number 93 really has a lot of Masonic ties and is simply a number found in Jewish gematria, which they love to use when fooling the masses. No proof of the ball. Now, I know it sounds absurd, but when you have been searching for the answer to the flat Earth versus globe debate, for a while you will see a lack of true evidence for the ball and that the Earth is truly flat. Each ancient civilization knew the nature of the Earth and how it is. The greed and evil nature of man came along and tried to turn the true nature of Earth into something it isn't, to fool the masses and to lead them away from our God. It's this simple. When you trace back the origin of the globe, there was truly no proof or evidence, just mathematics that could work out in favor of the model with the Earth orbiting the sun.
How would someone benefit from convincing everyone Earth's a ball? And how is maths not valid as evidence? If I was to pick two shirts from a shop that each cost £10, I could assume that the total cost would be £20, because math. And I'm sure you wouldn't tell me I was wrong because of lack of evidence. The math in this scenario is the evidence. So why tell me I'm wrong because of lack of evidence for the globe? It's provable by math, yet you're saying that it isn't valid. If it was valid in the shirt scenario, why can't it be valid here? What's the boundary where math cannot be used as evidence and where it can? He then goes on to repeat that relativity is just a theory, so we're going to jump to the next argument.
Gravity doesn't actually make sense when you think about it, and a good example that it doesn't is in the following passage from Henry's book. Newton's theory of gravity is founded upon the premise that all objects are attracted to all other objects based upon their mass. Eric Dubé explains that this law of science has never been proven and cannot be observed. This magnetic-like attraction of massive objects gravity is purported to have can be found nowhere in the natural world. There is no example in nature of a massive sphere or any other shaped object by which its virtue of its mass alone causes smaller things to stick to it or orbit around it.
So here's a view of Saturn and its rings. I need to emphasize that this is not computer generated by NASA. This was recorded with a webcam through a 4-inch telescope that cost less than £500. And I know that for certain because I was the one who took this footage. I honestly encourage you to buy a small telescope and have a look for yourself. Gravity perfectly explains the rings, from why they even exist to why there are gaps in them based on the orbits of Saturn's moons.
Try spinning a wet tennis ball or any other spherical object with smaller things placed on its surface, and you will find that everything falls or flies off, and nothing sticks to or orbits it.
This part of the video really tells me that he doesn't understand gravity whatsoever. First, an object doesn't have to be spherical to have gravity. Gravity is the result of anything with mass. Take the asteroid Chariklo, for example. It's not spherical, and it has a ring system orbiting it. Second point, an object doesn't have to be smaller than another object to be affected by its gravity. Not at all. A perfect example of this is the Earth's moon system. Anyone with a decent computer and some basic programming skills, or even just Universe Sandbox 2 or something, can run a simulation of the Earth-Moon system and see that the Earth is tugged on by the Moon as it orbits the Earth, despite the fact that the Moon is 81 times less massive. So this part of the video really sends your credibility down the drain. And also, I just think it's absolutely crazy how you use a tennis ball as an example of something that doesn't have gravity. A tennis ball is ridiculously small compared to how big things have to be to possess any noticeable gravity.
To claim the existence of a physical law without a single practical, evidential example is hearsay and not science.
Hearsay and not science. Hearsay and not science. The globe ball Earth is real and flat Earth is hearsay and not science.